Well, the day's finally here, and we're going to start replacing these axles. So I've put together a couple videos of me building the rear axle and the front axle. The front axle is ready to go in as far as what I'm going to do to it. So that's what we're going to do today. It's actually a fairly cool day. It's only supposed to be in the mid 80s today. So it's going to be a perfect day for me to do this. Now I am working by myself, which 10 years ago wouldn't have been a problem, but now at my age, wrestling these axles forever is going to be an issue. My wife's watching me. But I'm ready to get this Jeep done and going. The Jasper Jeep Fest in Georgia, which is a huge Jeep jamboree, is coming up in a little over a month, and I want to be ready for that. The rear axle still has some things to be done to it. It still needs to be fully welded. I need to verify the position of all the brackets with the old axle, so that's coming out. But today I'm going to try to get the front done, which means the front axle under it, bolted back up, fluids, and start laying out the suspension, because the suspension is going to be a big deal. And then I've got some 4-inch lift springs, and I've got to make sure they're actually 4-inch lift springs. They were given to me about 10-15 years ago, and I just put them in the corner. I never verified if they were actually 4-inch lift springs, so that's what we got to do today as well. If they're not, I got to figure out another solution. But anyway, let's get started. So here's what we're going to do. Here's how you replace this front axle. Start by lifting the Jeep, supporting it. We all know how to do that. If you don't and you're working on your vehicle, you need to take a step back and learn that. We'll take the tires off after I get it supported. We'll start taking the steering loose, the sway bar loose, the shocks loose, and then start wrestling with the control arms, which I don't think have ever been off of this Jeep. And this Jeep is originally from up north, I believe, or maybe down by the coast. Either way, it has some surface rust on it, and that's going to be an issue. Let's see, that's roughly 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, 12, 13, 14, 15. That's about 16 bolts to take loose, not including the lug nuts. And that doesn't sound like much, but when I get under here and start wrestling with them, you'll see that it is not an easy task. I forgot the 2 bolts for each caliper, so roughly 20 bolts then. Of course, I can subtract these 2 because that's just pins for my sway bar disconnects. We'll pop those out. We are ready to start taking loose. I'm going to start by taking the calipers loose, getting the rotors off. I'll zip tie the calipers up. Go ahead and get the sway bar pins out. Then I'll work to the shock. I'll remove the shock, 2 bottom bolts and the top bolt. I'll explain the top bolt later, but remove the 2 bottom bolts, get them out of the way. Once all that's done, I'll drop it down far enough to get the springs out, and then I will start working on these control arm bolts. Of course, I got to do the bolts on the drive shaft, and look at that. I've got a bolt that's loose on my drive shaft. That's dangerous. You don't want this cap moving around. If this cap moves around, it will start ruining needle bearings, and you'll blow that out. Looks like it's been like that for a while. You can see how corroded this axle is. The new one will be a good replacement. You can even see how old some of this is. There's my bump stops down here, and they're just crumbling. I guess I need to buy new bump stops. Here's some parts for my new axle. That's the power stop rotors. It should go with those brakes anyway, because my new axle has cast, are designed for cast rotors, which is what these are, which is the newer style. And the way I did that was I put in the newer style unit bearings. The difference is the height in the unit bearings from the side of the axle. And these new ones are newer unit bearings, so they're a little bit taller, and they will accept the cast rotors. Of course, I've got a new Rubicon Express adjustable track bar. That's going to be my control arms when I get them built. That's the uppers. This will be a radius arm style, and then there'll be the lowers. I need to cut those and those marks and re-weld them shorter, and then weld the rest of the brackets on. And then this is a mystery box that I'll show you in a minute. That is pretty exciting in my opinion. After a whole lot of cussing, a whole lot of fighting, this damn thing is ready to come out, so I can slide the new one under there and start measuring. The damn tab nuts on the top of these control arms, whoever designed those, I hope they got a spot in hell waiting for them, because this is just a terrible design. There's no real head on the top. So as these turn around, they're supposed to grab the edge of the control arm so that you can unscrew them. Well, if this deflects, which it does every single time, and I've removed these on probably 4 or 5 different Jeeps, this will deflect and just slide around the control arm and you'll never be able to grab it. I had to use a pipe wrench and try to grab onto the sides to hold it. There's no reason for them to have these instead of just regular lock nuts and a regular bolt. So it must have something to do with the ease of manufacture or something. Probably how they put it together on the assembly line, I guess, because there's no reason to have that. Lower control arms are disconnected at the frame, upper at the at the axle. I'll go ahead and take the uppers loose once I got all that out of the way so I can get up under there and work. Ow.
You better stretch your back out.
Yay! Oh,
And the
Jesus.
crowd goes, yay.
Oh my God. Now that I've got the trusty rusties off the Jeep, I'll show you what I'm doing that I wasn't planning on, but I just couldn't pass it up. Found a deal on some Bilstein 5100s. Well, I will never get that strap back on there. But some Bilstein 5100s. These are for a 4-inch lift, long arm lift, which is what I'm doing to the front. These are the front ones. I also bought rear ones, which is for a 4-inch short arm lift, because I am keeping short arms on the rear. They do have different valving in them, but these are obviously monotube shocks instead of the instead of the twin tube shocks. And they're a little bit lighter, but they have much better heat dissipation and things like that than the Rusties or any of these old white body shocks. So those look real nice on the Jeep. I like that polished aluminum. Tell me what you think if you have any experience with Bilsteins. I've only ever heard good things about them. So guys, I'm very close to calling it quits for the day. I will go ahead and post this video and then make another one tomorrow of me mocking up the suspension and all that, but we've got most of it done. Obviously some of the corrosion really impeded my progress today. There's the old disgusting corroded axle, which is still good, 373. It's still solid. It just needs to be sandblasted and painted. And then here's the new one. I did find a defect with this I didn't know I had. The previous owner apparently cut the sway bar link off this end. Not the sway bar link, but the sway bar bracket. I'm gonna have to weld one back on because I obviously need my sway bar. But I got the Rubicon Express adjustable track bar bolted up. Got the diff cover and the protector bolted up. Of course, this axle has the chromoly axle shafts, Alloy USA, dust shields, new unit bearings, and I will be putting these Bilsteins and the power stop matching rotors to go with the power stop brakes. And we'll try to get most of that done tomorrow. I will not have it sitting on its tires because I realized that my bump stops just crumbled in my hand. I wasn't prepared for that, so I had to order new bump stops, and I'm not going to take all this back down to get the bump stops back in. Bump stops will be here Tuesday. Today is Saturday, so I'll actually finish all this video up midweek. Here's the springs I was going to put in. I thought these were 4-inch lift springs. These are Rusty's 2.5-inch lift springs, which means that these have to be 3-inch lift springs unless they have a lot stiffer ride, which I don't want. That's why I got the Bilsteins. So I'm not going to use these. These were Skyjacker, I believe. I'm going to put the Rusties back in there with some 1.5-inch spacers to get me up to 4 inches. The spacers will also be here Tuesday. I've ran spacers before. I really don't have a problem with them. Not for what I do. The last thing I'll do tomorrow is I'm going to get the flap wheel out, and I'm going to flap wheel all of this and get ready to recoat it and paint it. That way some of this corrosion will go away. I'm going to have to cut these brackets off for my long arm, and I may have to cut my exhaust for the long arm as well. I'll have to figure that out. Steering's going to get reused. Rusty steering stabilizer is going to get reused. And of course, all the brakes are getting done. I may get some brake caliper paint and paint those brake calipers. I'm not sure. All right, guys, I got sufficiently dirty today, and I'm going to end the video here. Tune in for the next video. It's going to be coming pretty rapid fire on putting everything back together. And if you want to see that and see the front end done, then I'll start working on the rear end as far as putting it in. That should be within a week and a half, I hope. I need to get this Jeep up and going. I don't need a lot more than a week and a half of downtime in it. Although I can drive it with the stock rear end and the 488s in the front, I just won't have use of four-wheel drive. But thanks for watching. Tune in to the next video, and guys, have a great day.